Yeah, this is the therapeutic MyoYin class series. And so our class objective is to learn about this unique therapeutic modality of MyoYin, which is a fusion of yin style yoga and myofascial release, which are both modalities that target the fascial system. And if you don't know what the fascial system is, if you don't know what fascia is, then don't worry because you are going to be learning all about the fascia in these sessions. And we're also going to be discussing, things that go on a little bit of a deeper level as well. So we're going to be learning about the energetic meridian system, the nadis, and the prana, the chi, the vital life force, and the interconnectedness of the physical body and consciousness. And we're going to be exploring these things from two different perspectives. We're going to be exploring from the perspective of modern science, and we're also going to be exploring from the perspective of like ancient wisdom that's derived from yoga and traditional Chinese medicine, which are both thousands of years old. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my history of how I came into studying and teaching this particular modality of MyoYin. So I've been a traditional hatha yoga teacher for more than 20 years, but it was only 7 years ago that I got to know yin yoga, and I immediately fell in love with it. It was kind of like the missing puzzle piece in my wellness journey. Because prior to that, like a lot of people, I think, even a lot of yogis, I was kind of caught up in this belief that strength and vitality and wellness always required action and effort. And just in general, in my younger life, I was kind of perpetually caught up in movement and, in a lot of different ways, constantly moving from one place to the next and just, always chasing after the next thing. And, I had this tendency, like when things weren't working, that I would, just kind of jump and move on to the next thing. And so, when things got difficult or uncomfortable or boring, I would just, just bail and move on to the next thing. And I didn't quite fully understand the benefit of being still with my discomfort and still with my challenges and still with my boredom. I hadn't quite grasped the idea that in order to find balance, we have to train ourselves in both action and surrender. So throughout this journey, I've had the opportunity to study with some really good yin yoga teachers and do some different trainings, and all of them have been direct students of Paul Grilly, who is considered like the grandfather of this style of yoga, of yin yoga. One of my teachers included Nikki Hajitoma, who was the understudy of Joe Fee, who is the creator of this specific fusion of yin yoga and myofascial release called MyoYin. And she's a really amazing teacher based in Singapore. And she has a background in psychology and neuroscience and traditional Chinese medicine. She's considered kind of like a fascia expert, and she's well known in kind of the fascia research world. And Nikki Hachitoma, who I did the MyoYin teacher training with, was her understudy. And then I also have an opportunity to study with Joe Fee this summer. So I'm really excited about that. Just gonna let Carmen in here. Okay, cool. Welcome, Carmen. You can have your microphone muted. As you know, you've done this class before, so video is optional. So just settle in. I'm just starting with some introductions and just kind of introducing what we're about to do. Yeah, so I was just talking about like my history with MyoYin and how I learned it. I've also done some training in the John Barnes method of myofascial release. And so if you're familiar with any like bodywork myofascial release, you've probably heard, maybe you've heard the name John Barnes because he's considered like one of the early pioneers of myofascial release. So that's my history, and that's where I'm coming from. I think that's important to honor the lineage of the teachers that have carried the threads forward and passed them on to me that I am now passing on to you. For anybody who might be new to Yin Yoga is basically a specific approach to the yoga practice where we soften the body into different postures for several minutes at a time. And this facilitates a low load stress on the fascia. And then similarly, myofascial release is a bodywork modality where we manipulate the fascia by putting a low load pressure in different fascial attachment sites. So in myofascial release, we're often targeting like different attachment sites where the fascia comes together, as well as trigger points, which are areas of fascial restrictions that cause pain. So we have learned, when I say the word stress, a lot of people like the immediate reaction is, you know, we tend to associate stress as something that's not good. Stress is bad, right? And too much stress is bad, but actually, stress is something that the body needs. We need a certain level of stress, and the tissues need stress in order to grow new cells and to repair and to renew themselves. And so if our body doesn't get enough stress, then it actually it can deteriorate. So if you imagine like, you know, if we were to go spend a few months in outer space where we don't have the gravity that's, you know, putting stress on our bodies, then our bones are going to get weak and brittle and porous, and we might get osteoporosis, and our muscles atrophy and get weak. And then on the other hand, too much stress is not good, as we know. And as far as the body tissues are concerned, when there's too much stress on the body tissues, then this causes injury and damage and deterioration. And so when it comes to any fitness or wellness or health routine, when we're dealing with the body, we need to stress the body, but not too much. So we need to be like Goldilocks, and we need to find this just right amount of stress for the body that stimulates growth and repair and renewal without causing damage and deterioration. And so we have specific ways that we can stress the different body tissues. Different types of body tissues respond to different types of stress or exercise. So for example, our bones like weight-bearing exercise. So like even just holding up our own body weight is putting pressure, putting stress on our bones. But then when we add to that, like say if we shift all of our weight over onto one leg and put even more stress on the bone, then this actually stimulates the growth of osteoblasts, which is bone cells, and keeps the bones healthy and strong. And the same way, like muscles like rhythm and repetition and movement. And when we do that, that stimulates the production of myoblasts, which are muscle cells. Now, the fascia, which is a connective tissue, has its own unique way of getting stressed and exercise that's good for it, which we will talk about here in a little bit. So let me talk for a few minutes about fascia. So up until a few decades ago, there wasn't a whole lot of talk about fascia. There wasn't much to note about it because it was believed it was just kind of like this crude packing material that sort of held the body together. But now in the last couple of decades, there's been a lot more research done on the fascia, and we're realizing that there's a lot more to it. So it does, in fact, bind and encase and support and permeate every cell of the body. It is like a scaffolding. It provides structure to the body. It holds everything together and holds everything in place. It has a very fluid nature to it, and it facilitates like a gliding of all the different layers of tissue. So they're able to glide and move together. And this fluid nature of the fascia helps our body, makes it able for the body to absorb shock. And it also, the fluid nature transmits mechanical forces through the body. It moves the different fluids throughout the body, and it also moves around the electricity of the body. So it's kind of like a conduit for the energetic current of our body. The fascia comprises about 20% of our body volume. And the fascia is one continuous sheet. It's like one continuous matrix. There's no beginning or end. But of course, in modern Western science, we like to put labels on everything and put things into categories and compartments. And so we have different types of fascia in different categories depending on like the composition of them. So for example, we have like the superficial fascia, which is like our skin and the fatty layer underneath our skin, the adipose tissue. There's visceral fascia, which is the type of fascia that kind of separates and encases and binds all of our internal organs. The myofascia is specifically the fascia that binds and encases and supports and permeates the muscle tissue. And so it not just, it encases the muscle groups and holds the muscle groups together, but it also encases and surrounds every single muscle fiber and every single muscle cell. And then we also have the deep fascia, which is like the deep structural fascia. And even though the fascia is just one continuous matrix, and so when we deal with the fascia, we're dealing with all of it. Specifically in this type of modality, we are targeting mainly the deep fascia and the myofascia, hence the name MyoYin. And so fascia is made up of some different things, including collagen, which is like the supportive structure. You can imagine collagen like microscopic steel cables that provide the strength and the support to hold everything up. And in addition to collagen, there's also something called elastin, which makes it able to flex and move and have some flexibility so that it's not completely rigid. And then filling in all this space in between these collagen and elastin fibers is this viscous jelly fluid called ground substance, sometimes also called the extracellular matrix, which I think is a cooler name. And the extracellular matrix is made up of water and some different proteins and something called hyaluronic acid, which is the component in our bodies that actually maintains the fluidity of our tissues. And it contributes to like the lubrication of our joints and all of our tissues. So when the fascia is healthy, then it has a very fluid-like composition, thin web-like fluid strands that are able to easily like glide and move with each other and provide that lubrication and that fluidity of the body. It's sturdy, but it's also flexible. So there's that balance of stability and flexibility. When fascia is not healthy, the ground substance or the extracellular matrix gets more thick and sticky. It almost becomes like honey. And the more sticky it gets, then the layers of tissue are not able to easily glide over each other. They get kind of stuck together, and then there's friction. And when there's friction, then that leads to inflammation and pain and immobility. And so this is caused by like overuse and underuse of the body. So like when we don't move our bodies enough, when we don't take our joints through their range of motion, um, if we have poor posture, if there's imbalanced loading patterns on our body, if we have a particular sleeping pattern where we hold our body in a certain way, repetitive movements, things like that can cause this thickening of that viscous fluid in the fascia to get more sticky. And even after like a night's sleep, this jelly fluid will get kind of like this film in it. And in the fascia world, they call it the fuzz. And so there's like this little film that it starts to get a little bit sticky. But if we wake up in the morning and we move our body and we do a little bit of stretching and things like that, then it just kind of dissolves. But if we don't do any of that and we are sedentary and immobile, then that fuzz builds up and it gets even stickier and harder and tighter and drier. And it becomes like adhesions. So you get like these kind of like knotty, tangled, dehydrated strands of fascia that literally start to like strangle the organs and the tissues and the blood vessels and the nerves and whatnot that it's permeating and surrounding. And like a very dramatic version of this, when we don't take care of our bodies, is the fascia will actually experience something called contracture, where it will like just like shrink wrap. And remember, it's one continuous sheet of tissue. And so if you imagine, just that shrink wrapping and that tightening of the entire matrix just around all of your tissues is going to lead to pain and disease and dysfunction. So how do we improve the health of the fascia? We have learned through this early research that we've had in the past couple decades that the fascia likes low load, long duration pressure or stress. And so in this practice that we're going to be doing today, we're going to facilitate that low load, long duration pressure or stress in the fascia with our yin yoga postures by disengaging the muscles and relaxing and sinking into these postures for several minutes at a time. Then that puts that stress in different attachment sites in different tissues. And when we're using the massage balls, then this allows us to make that pressure and that stress even more targeted and precise, and we can specifically target some different attachment sites where these fascial restrictions tend to reside. So it's important that when we are doing this, important criteria is that we have to disengage the muscles. Because if we're clenching up or if we're kind of trying to muscle into what we're doing, if we're not relaxed, then all of that stress gets taken on by the muscle tissue. And when we're able to relax the muscle and take the muscle out of the equation, then that stress is taken on by that soft skeleton of the fascia and the deep tissues. So with that said, when we're doing this practice today, we're seeking out that Goldilocks, that middle path. We want enough pressure, enough stress that we can feel it and we can feel the challenge of it and we can feel something powerful and beneficial happening. But it's not so much stress and so much pressure that it's causing pain in our bodies. Because if it's too much, then unconsciously we're going to kind of clench up our muscles and our muscles are going to stay contracted and the fascia is not going to be getting the benefit. So I advise you to seek out sensation that is about a 5 on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being no sensation and 10 being pain. Okay. Longer, more intense holds are not necessarily better. Okay, so we know from the science that we have that we need to hold this low load stress for a minimum of 90 seconds to 2 minutes. That's kind of the minimum to get this reaction from the fascia. But in general, we usually try to hold it a little bit longer, like 3 to 5 minutes. But holding longer than that is not necessarily better. It's not better, it's not worse. But if we try to muscle in and try to do it too much, remember we could be, causing more damage. Sometimes less is more. Um, so some contraindications for doing this deep tissue myofascial release is malignancies, so like any tumors, aneurysms. If you have a predisposition towards like blood clots and things like that, you definitely want to be careful with this pressure. Any fresh injuries, any fresh wounds, or any areas that are inflamed, you want to avoid doing the myofascial release on those areas. We also don't do myofascial release directly on the bone. We're specifically targeting the attachment sites that are around the bone, but not straight on the bone itself, okay? And finally, before we start our practice, you are your own best teacher and healer. And the practice of yoga is meant to quiet all the chatter in your mind so that you can more easily connect with that wise old sage within that knows exactly what is needed. And so everything that I say is a suggestion, not a command. The practice is going to be challenging and sometimes even uncomfortable at times, but it's not meant to be painful or stressful. So if anything doesn't feel right or beneficial in the body, then don't do it. Okay. So everybody cool with that? Any questions so far? Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to start our practice now. So microphones off and video optional. And we're going to start in a supine position on the mat. So go ahead and lay down on your back and have your blocks and your balls within your reach.